Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth in a series of 5 CPD and business building webinars focusing on our health. I'm Dawn Campbell, your host at the IAPC&M, and today we're joined by Jennifer Helen Popken. Hello, Jennifer.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. It's such a delight to share something that we don't talk about enough, I think, in entrepreneurship, this life-work balance and how we take care of ourselves so we can show up and do more and be more successful at the end of the day, not only monetarily, right, in the impact that we're making, but also in our own sense of self.
Yeah, exactly. And I know as a health coach and a business coach, so I have 2 very specific niche markets, they actually overlap a lot. So the health of the entrepreneur, if they're feeling tired and jaded, quite often their business is a bit stagnant as well, or vice versa. So I think this is a really holistic subject. And so far, at the end of January, we talked about having the courage to declare your health goals. And, that's really important. And for most people, by the end of January, people have forgotten what their health goals and New Year's resolutions were. So that was a timely reminder. Thank you, Jennifer. And then we talked about the resistance and how that affects our motivation. And today, a very important subject is the hidden importance of exercise. So what would you like to talk about around exercise, please?
All these years, Dawn and Colette, who's with us, and Karen, so good to see you guys. Thank you for being here with us. All these years, I have been doing a lot of mind stuff, like coaching, right? And the ontological conversation and all of this therapy and, working with clients. And at the beginning, I realized telling people what to do and how to do it was not going to work. And that's when the art and science of coaching came in. And I was able to really understand the inner workings of human behavior and how to make shifts in behavior so that we could all move into our greatest, best selves. But I noticed there were also limitations to what I was able to do in the work of the coaching conversation, right? So we had food, which was really important. That's an area of expertise that I have. And then there was the coaching conversation, the ontological and somewhat intellectual and also spiritual conversation. And then there's this movement piece. And this was a key factor that I noticed in the thousands of people that I've worked with. When this factor is missing, the whole picture couldn't come to fruition. And it's like a kind of, I think magic is probably the wrong word, but it seemed like magic. Like, when this thing got inserted into the picture, everything else seemed to work itself out. Now, that doesn't mean that in and of itself, exercise or movement is the solution, right? It's also our relationship to how it's happening, the relationship to how we're being while we're doing the exercise, if that makes sense. It's very ontological, but it's the truth. And I really think it's important that we talk about exercise because most of the busy entrepreneurs that I coach and work with and mentor are all too busy, right? I mean, they've got to just check it off the list because they know they need to keep their heart healthy and it keeps them thin, so that's kind of the extent at which we talk about exercise, but there's so much more. Now, I've been practicing yoga now for, almost 3 decades. And I've realized that part of the tool of yoga is actually clearing memory, right? It's actually purifying the fascia system. And the fascia system is like the network that holds the muscle in place, so to say. I'm oversimplifying. But it's all throughout our body. Our nervous system is integrated. There's water that's integrated, right? And all of this, come to find out, holds memory. Who knew? And if we can move the fascia, right? If we can move the emotion, which to me is energy in motion, and if we use exercise as a tool to actually liberate, then it becomes something so much more than just checking it off the list. It is freedom. It is health. It is embodiment. It is the very most important thing that I found is just feeling comfortable in my own skin. And the wisdom of our bodies is really underestimated. We get so bogged down with what we should eat, we shouldn't eat, when we should eat, when we shouldn't eat. It's like we forget to read the cycles of our body. We don't even know what the cycles of our body. And even if we get a sign, we don't necessarily know what it means. So it's also a way of tuning into what our body needs. So it's so rich. And I would love to have a conversation about it. But exercise for me is become even more important than food, but you can't outrun your fork. It's become even more important than the conversation of ontology, the coaching conversation, because I can move something that's stuck in my body faster with a movement than I can with a conversation. So it's become for me the most efficient tool that I have in my toolbox to move through emotion, to, of course, stay fit, but more importantly, to feel embodied. And after many years now of practicing this, and I can talk much more about what the practice looks like, and it'll be different for everybody, right? Mine isn't necessarily supposed to be yours, right? It's all about you and your uniqueness and what ignites you. But people have actually started to notice it, right? I'm getting feedback from others that is confirming, what it is I'm experiencing. So it's been a huge source of inspiration, as you can probably tell. I'm super fired up about it. And its interrelatedness with our ability to become peaceful inside and freedom, and of course, to have our birthright of health.
I think that's amazing what you just said. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but still amazing that you can shift something faster by moving than you could perhaps throughout a whole coaching session.
Yeah, it is amazing. And I didn't believe it until I experienced it time and time and time and time again. I met other people who've been in this practice for way longer than I had. I came late to the game comparatively to some of these other people, and come to find out this community that I didn't join, but that I started to participate in about 5 years ago. Come to find out, all the people, well, I just say all, over 85% of the people in this community, which is a big community, hundreds and hundreds of people, not thousands, but hundreds, most of them are psychotherapists. I was like, wow, there's something to this, So I kept watching and observing and practicing, and I was like, oh, there's something here.
Well, that bears out what I've always said about walking. As a walking coach and a supporter and a trainer at a cancer charity, I take clients out walking, and I felt it was the easiest way for us to walk side by side in nature, for the healing and the tears, and for it all just to be released, rather than sat over a desk with a box of tissues between us. So my experience is, as a volunteer at a cancer support charity, that this was very powerful. And that's why I trained to become a Nordic walking instructor and became a walking coach, to have that same sort of, but I hadn't heard anybody actually say it like that. I just thought, well, walking enhances the coaching experience, but it's any movement, you're saying.
Well, I think it has to do with our intention, Dawn and Karen and Colette. I think it's really about our intention. You were intending to take those people out into nature to help them move something, to help them connect with something greater than themselves. Because if I'm upset, I was really upset a couple of days ago. I don't know what it was. I was just really tender and reactive, and just, not really feeling like my usual self, my usual sunny self. And there's something about feeling into or being part of something bigger than yourself when you're feeling like that, when you're feeling upset, when you don't trust your body anymore, which cancer patients feel. You don't feel like the world is for you, it's against you. Why did you get this? Why now? And it's such a life-changing experience. And so your intention, having them be in nature, helped. So I think it's about the intention. I too trained as a Nordic walk instructor. I love Nordic walking. It's so unusual here in the United States, but it is so fun, and nothing quite compares to it. And so it's about the mindfulness. I know we all know this word, and we might roll our eyes when we think about it, but actually it's about the mindfulness. It's about being present in that moment, every step, every press back with the pull, every plant forward. It's about the coordination of the breath and the movement, and then the connectedness to the air and then the earth, and then the trees. It's about getting outside of yourself. That's not true. It's getting outside of your mind and into your body, because the mind will lie to you all day long. But your body will never lie. The wisdom and the truth that's in the body is so undeniable if you can start to listen to it, learn what it's saying, and tap into that truth. Because sometimes someone will ask me a question, and my immediate intellectual answer is yes or no. But if I tap into my body, there's like a resonance. There's it lands, it's like, oh, no, that doesn't feel right. I don't know why it doesn't feel right, but it definitely doesn't feel right. And if I listen to that, it's 100% correct. If I listen to this, not always. No.
It's interesting you mentioned listening to your body. I've just read your body's many cries for water. It's a book I've had on my shelf for years. And I'm reading the pH diet, the pH miracle diet. I think it's Dr. Young. And so my goal at the moment is drink more water. But it's amazing how out of touch we are with our bodies. Even something as basic as thirst, we think, oh, we're hungry, so we eat, or we override it completely. Hence, so many problems. In fact, the guy who wrote the book said just about everything, whether it's depression, whether it's asthma, whether it's cancer, nearly everything could be reduced, eliminated through just being hydrated. And he doesn't mean, tea, even herbal teas. I thought herbal teas were fine, but no, it has to be good quality water. So it's a fascinating book. But it kind of links with the exercise thing, because the more you're moving, the more you need to be drinking water as well.
I love that book. It's by far one of the top books I recommend people read, because it's just so basic. People want all the secrets about health. And I'm like, just, really, like, how much water are you drinking? Like good air, good sleep, good water, like those things are like, if those are the like fundamentals, like everything builds on that. I definitely recommend that book to everyone. And hydration is really important. And there's a lot of discussion around what proper hydration means and what kind of water we should be drinking. And there's just a lot of debate about it. But even that too, because, Dawn, we've, and Karen and Colette, we've done a lot of work with different ideologies around water, not only water purification system, whether it's reverse osmosis or distilled or carbon filter or other, UV. There's so many different spectrums in this conversation around water filtration. And then, of course, you go one step further and it's restructuring the water energetically. And there's just so much on the topic of water that we could discuss, and exercise is key. But I think what's so important for me is morning time, sometimes also evening, but is the hydration and circulation. Morning time is such a critical time for hydration and circulation. And when I say circulation, I do mean breath, right? And exercise tends to be a great way to get more breath, more oxygen in your body, more oxygen in your blood. And so that movement is so critical in the morning, and our bodies are meant to move. We know by now that, I'm going to say the English one, capillary, that's the British one, capillary, we say in America. The capillary density is so critical for our health and longevity. And there really isn't enough research at this point on microcirculation, but we know that the density of your capillaries are critical and directly correlated to how well you're aging and how good your health is. And the capillaries exist connected to everything, right? But they're not actually, get this, they're not actually connected to, right, the veins and arteries in the way that we think that they might be. And their job is to, of course, bring oxygen and nutrients, and then remove oxygen and toxins. So they bring oxygen and nutrients, and then they expel toxins. I mean, their role is critical. And the more sedentary we live, the less capillary density we have. And if you ever get curious about this, there's tons of information about it emerging, but it's emergent. It's not known. We know exercise is good and sedentary lifestyles are bad, but why? And it's a lot about circulation and hydration. And we do need water in order for our body to produce the capillaries. I can't say the word. I'm like stuck between two worlds. And we need access hydration. I mean, adequate hydration. If we don't have adequate hydration, we are going to be in trouble, bottom line, for sure. I mean, I drink, Dawn, probably at least, I would say 3 to 4 liters a day at a minimum. And a lot of tea as well. I do drink a lot of tea. And I think there are different calculations from what I understand on how much water we should drink. Dawn, what are you aiming for every day?
Well, I think I probably do 2 as an average. But the book was basically saying 4, 5, 6, 7 liters, depending on your size, your sex, your weight. So I've got 2 4-liter bottles of water and every time we're going past the counter, my husband and I are now having a competition who can drink the most. But I always thought that just glugging a glass sort of every half hour wasn't as good as sipping all day long, because, you know, if you glug a glass, it's going to go straight through you and you're going to have a pee and that's it. But if you're sipping all day long, your body can use it more. But I think perhaps I was mistaken from what his book was saying, is we do need a big glass every half an hour.
Well, Dawn, I love, knowing, I love this conversation just because I'm so interested in, I kind of geek out on this stuff. I'm just so interested. But I think at the end of the day, I notice when I glug a big glass of water, it goes straight through me.
Yeah.
And when I urinate less and feel more hydrated.
Mm.
So, I think also for women, since we're all women on this call, and there may be men listening, so I don't mean to exclude you, but it's very important that we stay hydrated for our hormonal health, and also adequately, before 7 p.m., of course, then before meals, an hour and a half before meals, or sorry, half an hour before meals, or an hour and a half after meals. So it's really important that we kind of time it. I know for myself, if I'm not really getting a bottle like this one in before 10, I'm really behind with my hydration. But I'd love to just go back a little bit to exercise and movement, because I think that it's a little bit scary for people to exercise, especially if you haven't been exercising. I think that what I notice is there's a lot of resistance because it's very confrontational. Exercise can be very confronting for people because maybe in grade school you were made fun of. I know I was. I could never do those competitions, and we had to do pull-ups and sit-ups, and you were graded, on that. And I never was very good at it. So I just assumed I wasn't really very good at sports. I never made the varsity teams in my high school. And kind of sports kind of took it on that form. And it wasn't until much later that I started, and I was in a wheelchair as a kid, so I couldn't really move that much. So for 3 years, from ages 7 to 10. So for me, my relationship to my body has always been somewhat, I think, totalitarian, I guess is a great way to say it. Like I've been really hard on myself, and I really didn't feel connected to my body. And it wasn't until I started to practice yoga that I really started to understand that there was something more that was possible. Like I just went to the gym before that. I did 3 days, upper body, lower body, had my personal trainer, and I was inside of a context around, correct sports, this X amount of minutes of cardio, X amount of minutes of anaerobic, aerobic. Like I was very intellectual about it and even competitive with myself, but we all have a journey with it. And I noticed with my clients who are really out of shape, it is so difficult for them to force themselves really to get back on track.
It's a vicious circle, isn't it?
Yeah. And I implore you, if you are in that boat, to just start, even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's just 10 minutes. So I really want to encourage everyone who's listening today to take on some movement. And that movement can be parking further away from the grocery store. It could be taking a walk down the street. It doesn't have to be something grandiose, but something, even if it is getting up and down off your chair. Like, let's say you watch a lot of TV, and then maybe you stand up and you sit down, but you do it consistently for 30 times, so you actually are getting your heart rate increased. You're building your quadriceps and your glutes. So there is no end to possibility. But I feel like we get kind of stuck and confronted. So I just wanted to open up the call and see if anyone had any questions, because I know I've said a lot of things and I don't know how they landed for you. So I'd love to get some feedback and have any questions if anyone has anything they'd like to add or ask.
I think that standing up and sitting down is very big at the moment. In fact, you see headlines all over the press saying sitting is the new smoking. Simple as that. It's very bad for your health. Even if you just only stand up, as you say, and sit down 30 times, for a few minutes every hour, you're drastically going to improve your health. So what would everybody else like to say on the subject of, well, for me also a dreaded word, exercise. I had to find something else, that was working out or training. And that's why I became a Nordic walking instructor. But what's everybody else's experience? Just unmute yourself and make sure your videos are on, and feel free to join in the conversation.
I was just going to say, I'm really interested in what you were saying about the connection of mind body, because I teach a combination of Pilates and yoga. And obviously most people come to it because they want to improve their core strength and they want to get fitter. But I get loads of people saying to me, oh my God, when I've done one of your classes, I just feel so relaxed because I just don't have time to think about anything else. And I'm just totally within my body. And it's really the only time that I feel so relaxed and so at one with myself. So getting that sort of feedback from people, and it's something they don't expect to happen, something they aren't planning on, it just sort of happens, and it's great. Mm-hmm. So I think you're right, that whole connection with mind body is really interesting.
It really is, Karen, and that's a gift you have that you're able to give your students. That's really beautiful. And it's also a kind of freedom, from the agonizing of the mind chatter, which actually is one of the aims of yoga. I mean, technically the asana, which is the postures, is one of 8 limbs in the system of yoga, right? Because yoga is a system, you probably know that. And there isn't that much written about actually why we do the postures. There's only a few sutras that relate to it. Out of the 394 sutras, there's only like 4, loosely 4, maybe even just 2. So it's really actually a small part of the whole system of yoga, which is fascinating. But what I understand from the scriptures is that it creates stability. And stability not only in body, but also in mind, right? Because the mind, they say, is like fluctuating. And we see this through Joe Dispenza's work and others that show us the waves when they measure the brain waves, and what it's like when you're peaceful, and what it's like when you're angry, and what it's like when you're sad and emotional, and all those layers. And it brings a certain continuity to the mind chatter, stability to the thoughts, the jumping, or the monkey mind, some people call it. And there is like this intention when you're doing your movement, whether you're walking on a trail, you're getting up and down off the couch, or you're doing some kind of intentional movement to help increase the circulation of your breath and your heart. And for you, there's a lot of core strength involved. And it's so beautiful to be able to lead somebody who's searching strength and then have them find that freedom and peace. And
yeah, exactly. I think it's something that we sort of see exercise in the West as being something very, to keep you thin, to keep you fit, to keep you healthy, but in your body. But we don't see it as keeping your mind healthy. And actually it does both. You can't have one without the other. And I think people who come to it from a fitness point of view for their body and then discover this mind connection, it's great. It's just lovely.
It is so great. You're right. You can't have one without the other eventually. But some people are also doing exercise. And I know I've been in this boat to escape. Definitely I've done it to escape before. I've also done it as like self-flagellation, like, just to be hard on myself. I've hurt myself because I've overdone it because I didn't feel like I was enough, or I was eating too much and I needed to work out harder. So I really hurt myself and overdo. Like even now, sometimes I overdo. My daughter will be like, Mom, you should really maybe not do 3 hours today. I just actually really enjoy it. And I sit a lot because I'm on Zoom calls, all day. but it's part of like a saving grace, that mind piece. And I would call it, and I love how we're just breaking it down further and further. I call it embodiment. Embodiment practices, because whatever you're practicing, you're strengthening. And if I can practice into learning more about the wisdom of my body and what my body wants to tell me, and how I can find joy through movement, and how I can find freedom through movement and connection through movement, or how I can find where anger is living, or anxiety, or resentment, or shame. They all live in my body somewhere, because this is my home, and it is in me. It is in my cells. It is in the energetic imprint in my cells. And if I can find those things and I can breathe into them, lean into them, and then move them out, it is so powerful. And even if you have restricted movement, it's possible to do these things by doing breathing exercises, by doing things that you can do while you're recovering from an injury, or you have, like I had a yoga student who had her whole left hip bone missing. She had cancer in her bone and in her uterus, and they had to take out like a lot of it. So she wore one shoe that was 2 inches higher than the other, and she had like a totally prolapsed area. And this was really difficult for her, right? She had massively restricted movement, but there were a myriad of things I was able to show her. So she could be, relieved of back pain, but that she could increase the circulation in her body through her breath and supported movement. So there's always a lot of options inside of having restricted movement. And actually, I think more people have restricted movement than not. And it tends to be the very thing that stops us. And I just want to encourage you to find creative ways to move. And that's kind of the scary part, actually, was when I'm teaching a class and I say, okay, now just let your body move you. And people are like, what? Like, are they watching me? Like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what to do. And it's like, when we were kids, we did somersaults, and we just like jumping jacks, and we just like, we just did whatever. And we've forgotten that kind of play as an adult.
Have you heard of Nia dancing? Nia?
Yes. And
when I was running a retreat in Hungary, one of my students was a Nia teacher, and she invited me to this, and I felt exactly like you've just described. She turned on this music, and I just stood there and I didn't know what to do, because it was free movement. You just did what you wanted. It was very primal, and sort of just, I could imagine doing it around a fire pit in the forest, but it felt very, very awkward to me. And I had to go a couple of times. I can't say I really got into it because I was only there for a week. But it's that sort of scenario, isn't it? You don't follow the teacher, you follow what's intuitively in you, and I'm out of touch with it.
Yeah, we all are, Dawn. Yeah. And I think Nia, we call it Nia. Nia, I guess you said. It's a really spectacular practice. And it comes from a lineage of other practices. But let's face it, dance and this kind of embodiment, ceremonial practice has been part of every culture throughout time globally. Mm-hmm. There's no culture that I know of that doesn't have some kind of movement in their ceremonies, in their community gatherings. It has been, of course, it was banned for many years, right, in certain religious, religions, but it's always been done, even behind closed doors. It's just part of our human nature, is this movement. And I love Nia. I've practiced with a lot of really well-known instructors, and it's so fun and totally crazy and confronting. But I think you bring up a really good point, and that is vibration. And, in the ontological world, we talk about the way of being, right? Our way of being. And for me, in the ontological conversation, it's always about getting back to my essence, the core essence of who I am, who you are, Karen, and who you are, Colette. And Nalia, am I saying her name correctly, Dawn?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
It's about who you are at your core, and how do you get back to that? Oh yeah, thank you. Can you help me pronounce her name?
It's Nyla.
Nyla, thank you. Nice to see
No
you.
problem. Nice being here.
And if I can get back to my core sense of self, oftentimes it's through music that's inspirational and uplifting. And so I think there's some, for me, in my practice, without music, it can be a little bit challenging, to tune into that, like to my back to my being, back to my core essence of myself. And so I have a very rich resource of music, and I can send you a link to my Spotify if you guys are on Spotify, and you're welcome to listen to the inspirational music that I'm moving to. But even if I just put on a song or two, just to try to let my body move me. And this has been one of the highest level practices that I've been working with these last, I would say now 7 years or so. That's been so rich. And so, Dawn, I took a friend to one of those classes, like a Nia class, and she was really confronted. And she's like, this is uncomfortable. She's like, but I feel like I just did like 10 therapy sessions in an hour. She's like, this is great. But she cried the whole time and she didn't move and she closed her eyes. And she was really freaked out, but she got a lot out of it. And it was interesting that she correlated it. And I didn't say anything about therapy, but she correlated it like, this is how I feel after a great therapy session, or 10, as she said. So that was interesting to me, right? And what Karen's saying is interesting. It's like, we can't ignore all these touch points of truth inside of what I call embodiment practices.
And I would say that that's one of the keys that we've got to address ourselves. If we hate the word exercise, if it has negative connotations, we've got to find a word that we do like. So it could be walking, it could be dance, it could be movement, because it's still exercise. Having sex, hoovering the carpet, it's all exercise. But if we just say, oh, I must exercise, it's like, oh, really? But put Tina Turner on and have 5 minutes dance, or get on your trampoline or whatever. It's exercise. So for a lot of people, I think it's perception, Jennifer.
Totally, it is. And therefore, that's even more reason why we have to bring our mindfulness and our intention and our commitment to it. I don't believe anyone commits to anything unless they're convinced that it's good for them or that it's real. And there's a phenomenal book by Dr. John Ratey, R-A-T-E-Y. He's a Harvard PhD, and he wrote a book called Spark. And he takes the neuroscience of exercise and brings it to terminology that we all can understand. And he's an expert in this. And he's done a lot of research in this field around Alzheimer's disease, depression, anxiety, ADHD, learning differences. I mean, it is unbelievable how he helps us to understand what's happening in our brain, the synapses, the dendrites, the birth of new connections and what creates those connections. And I'll just tell you some of the top things he recommends: martial arts, yoga, dancing, rock climbing, fencing. So the common thread in all of these things are balance, right? So challenging yourself inside of movement, and resistance, right? So there's a lot of resistance in that. So there's balance. So your brain has to be destabilized. And this is another huge point inside of the conversation of exercise. And I want to get back to perception, but right now we're inside the conversation of education. Resiliency, and that's been a trending word in the health world for years now, but it actually trains you to be resilient. It trains you how to manage with discomfort, because discomfort is actually what is causing the body to change. It helps you to rebound more quickly from problems in your life. It helps you to literally train to be resilient. It is unbelievable. So he did a test. This was totally mind-blowing for me. These groups of kids, those who studied before a test and those who didn't, who exercised before a test, but didn't study. And the kids that exercised before their test scored substantially higher on their test than the kids who studied. That was like totally blew my mind. So I highly recommend this book as well, Spark by Dr. John Ratey, because it helps us to understand why exercise is way more important than just going for a walk, which you're right, is like totally like, ugh, please, seriously, just checking it off the list isn't going to really get you the full juice and benefit of what it has to offer. So I think the more we can find inspiration And the more we can make it fun, all of my clients, I'm like, don't do it if it's not fun, because I know it's not going to stick. You can willpower and white knuckle your way into anything for like 2, 3, 4, sometimes 6 weeks. But after that, it's going to drop. So it's got to be fun. So one of my clients loves to play tennis. She just loves it. Walking on the treadmill just doesn't cut it for her. But tennis, it's like every day she could, right? So whatever's fun. And as adults, again, we lose contact with what fun is. Fun usually ends up being drinking alcohol or, I don't know, watching the ball game, or it's really different for adults. And I would really encourage all of us to try to remember what play is for us. For me, it's like definitely dancing. It's being in nature. It's games, not so much. I'm still like not very competitive in that way. I don't really have the best hand-eye ball coordination. So I'm not really that great. Everyone who knows me is like, you should stick to like yoga and swimming. But I'm like, I love volleyball, but no one wants me on their team.
That's very, very bad for your self-esteem, isn't it? If you're never picked. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's that confrontation and that perception that you were just addressing, Dawn, that is for many of us, and what holds us back from truly diving in. And of course, building your brain as we age is so important. Skin elasticity is so important as we age. The importance of sweat is so important as we live in this environment where we're confronted with over 70,000 chemicals, many of which are unknown to us. The ones they are finding out what they are happen mostly to be carcinogenic. I mean, we are in a time now where if we're not sweating, we are actually causing a toxic buildup in our systems, and we have to sweat. Now, you can sweat in a lot of different ways, but it is really, really important to find ways to sweat, which, come to find out, women tend to not exercise because of their hair. They do their hair and they don't want to sweat because they don't want to mess up their hairstyle, because they spent half an hour on their hair. But listen, sweating is way more important than your hairdo. That's just me. But it's critical. And I moved to California, which is where I am now. And it's really dry here, much drier than any other place I've lived. And so for me, I'm like, how am I going to get perspiring? Because as soon as I would perspire, it would evaporate, so I have a sauna now. But it's critical for our skin health, for our aging, and for our for our detoxing, so to say. Anyone have anything they want to add or anything they want to ask? Well, I'd love to have you, and you can share or not share, recommit to something regarding movement, maybe even something new that's fun. And if you feel like you'd like to share what it is, I would love to, co-create the space with you, so that we can, help to have you fulfill on that recommitment. Yeah, for me, it's about getting out in nature. That's my commitment, to be in nature every single day in some way, because there's so much benefit for me when I'm in nature, and listening to music, sometimes in nature, also listening to the music of nature. So that's my commitment, from my words to your ears.
And we'll hold you to that.
Thank you.
I will agree with you, Jennifer. Those two things are very important to me as well. But I've included about 5-6 weeks ago the Couch to 5K. I've never been a woman who likes to run, because the girls are really big and they don't like running, if you know what I mean.
People going on too. I totally get it.
Yeah. So, and then I don't know if you remember me from last time. I've newly diagnosed with underactive thyroid, and so sweating a lot because of the hot flushing and things of that nature, with being premenopausal as well. So I'm glad to hear that sweating is good, because I'm doing a lot of that. But the running is trying to turn that into a fun thing. I love what you just said. If try to make whatever you do to be fun. So running in nature. I'm really trying with that one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I totally remember you. And thank you so much for being here today live.
No, I'm sorry. I couldn't get in. I don't know what happened with the Zoom, but I still tried again. I thought, let me just persevere this. And I think Dawn let me in. She probably thought the troublemaker's still trying. Let me let her in.
For me, the best way is really then through music to make it fun, really inspiring music that I can get into, which means uplifting lyrics, great rhythms, music that really fills me. I don't know, but that's been my thing, is music, and just a great pair of like a headset that I can run with, because some of the headsets really make it difficult to run, and of course a supportive bra is really important, or just the walk around. The Couch to 5K is a great app. My sister and I were using it. It's so exciting because the way they designed the user experience, you really can see your progress, and it makes you feel so good about what you're doing. So I love that format. I love their purpose, and I love the community they're building. And I really want to just encourage you to keep having fun with it. Even if it's like a friend of mine was doing this breathing thing with swimming. Like she started out doing every 2 strokes of breath. Now it's every 3 strokes. Now she's experimenting with every 5 and 9. And she's like, oh my God, it's always something like something. There's always something. Like today, I was trying to tune into like what my little girl wanted in my workout before this call. And oh my gosh, like I just got all these really beautiful ideas about, I love running through fields of flowers. And I love, like listening to the guitar, like live music. And it really I just was like, oh, I forgot about all those things. I really love all those things, and I got all these things that popped up into my head.
No, it's fantastic. It's such a shame because of lockdown. I used to enjoy swimming more than anything else. So it's quite interesting. The breathing side of things is when you're running, you actually really realize how much, you need to breathe, So that's another new thing that I've enjoyed learning about the 5K is the breathing as well that goes with it, because with swimming you have to have a sequence of breathing, and you need that strength of breathing as well. So I miss that. So I'm probably finding a new technique with the running.
Yeah, beautiful. Would it be of service to you to talk about how often, or I don't know how you'll measure that for yourself?
Because of this, like you said, the app is just so good, where it encourages you to run one day and rest one day as well, and gives you like techniques within it, like how you should run, how you should be breathing. So it's a really new experience for me. And like I said, not being a runner, like I'm not going to say I'm a fast runner at the moment. I'm up to the 3 minutes now, running for 3 minutes, which, like I said, I've never been a runner, so it's really big deal for me. And I love that I get tired, after the 3 minutes, I get tired, but I love that I'm breathing like really heavily and filling my lungs, and then slowly calming myself down. I really enjoy that bit, actually, come to think about it. Yeah.
Nice.
I can't remember the guy's name, and you might know it, but he was a coach for Olympians, and he trained runners to run for 1 minute, walk for 1 minute, run for 1 minute, and as they built up their stamina, they would run for 3 minutes, walk for 5. And he did this study that marathon runners didn't finish any slower than if they had just gone hell for leather and then ended up being slow, because they built their stamina with the walk run technique. And that's something you might like to look at researching. I'll find the link for you if you want it, Naila. But the walk run method, I found really helpful when I was training for marathons.
And this is what the app does. That's what it helps you to do. You start off with 60 seconds first, and then they build you slowly every week. Like they help you to run a little bit more. Like I'm on about the I think it's by the time you get to about the third week, it's 3 minutes and then 90 seconds. And, you know, after your 3-minute walk, you're going to walk for 3 minutes. And after your 90-second walk, you're going to be walking for 90 seconds. So it's really gentle. It is, for someone who doesn't like running at all, it's such a lovely, gentle way to learn how to run, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And there's this thing called Tabata training. And the run walk thing really works.
Yeah.
I can't,
Yeah.
and you feel like
I've just got into Tabata as well. And that's really, I love that it's 7 minutes or 10 minutes, because doing, I mean, it would be really lovely to do 3 hours of, you know, exercise. But in my lifetime, I think that amount of time I've never be able to give. But the Tabata is wonderful, like 7 minutes. And, you know, you're definitely breathing hard by the end of that as well.
So who else would like to share with us and let us know what they're committed to or recommitting to?
I'm going to recommit to using, I was just looking around the corner because there's my rebounder in the office. Stop putting stuff on it and using it as a little coffee table when I walk past. Start using it as I should. I've really commit to doing 5 minutes on the hour, because I know it's cumulative, so it's a really good thing to do.
Oh yeah, and the rebounder is so fun. Yeah, and it's so great for detoxifying. It's so great for your immune system. It's so great for your mood. I mean, yeah, it's so fun. And you know, you can find a 5-minute song, you know, that you, or two songs that 5 minutes, and then you can really like have a little dance party or a little, you know, party with yourself. Yeah. So I love it. I really appreciate your open minds and hearts today during this topic. And also the honesty that I'm going to request that you have with yourself about, you know, Dawn was so honest with us about kind of where she stopped because it was uncomfortable. But also, you know, it's like this inclination, like Karen shared and Dawn shared, it's like, it's so powerful. It's so powerful. So I just want to encourage all of us to move towards that and start to use movement, embodiment, exercise, however you want to relate to it in your terminology, as an exercise in mindfulness and presencing, and a way to tune into the innate intelligence in our bodies, and to start to slow down the fluctuations of the mind and tap into an ocean of wisdom that we have not actually been taught how to tap into. And that's what the secret ingredient is in exercise and movement, being a part of your life and a part of a wholeness and a holistic model in achieving everything that you are meant to be.
Yeah. That's a lovely, lovely summary, Jennifer, when you think, and it's so much easier for those of us that live in the country. It takes a huge amount more intention for those who are living in cities surrounded by concrete and probably need it far more to get out of the office, to get out of the house, reconnect with your body. But as you say, there are so many opportunities, whether it's the golf course or a dance class or squash or whatever. It has to be something that is fun, that we'll do consistently, and music is the key for many people. So thank you for that. So unless anybody has a last minute question before we lose Jennifer for another month, we'll end that there. No last minute thoughts? Okay, well, thank you, Jennifer. The next call, and the final call, in fact, in this mini health series, is on the 2nd of June. So we'll send you automatically an invite to that call as well. And in the meantime, take care, keep moving, and stay hydrated. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you, Jennifer. Keep safe. Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye, Jennifer. Bye.